Retired pastor here at Queen Street United Methodist Church, and this is our Wesley Bible class. Today we're studying chapter 8 in the book of Judges, and I had to set some parameters when you're going live with YouTube. You've got to set some parameters, and it asks you if it's for kids or not for kids. I click not for kids just about every time, but especially today. Okay, so this is a not for kids chapter. It kind of blows everything that every good thing that you've heard about Gideon out of the water. So if you want to see the Sunday school Gideon, you go to chapter 7. If you want to see the real Gideon, you go to chapter 8. Okay. So set the stage. Gideon is in the process of defeating the Midianites. He's had his army whittled down to 300 soldiers by the Lord. God told him how to select them, and they surrounded the Midianite camp in Dark 30, and they had trumpets and they had pots with torches in them. And when Gideon blew his trumpet, all these guys up on the ridgeline threw their pots down, blew their trumpets, pulled out their torches, and they blew. But before they blew, they said, "For the Lord and for Gideon." Okay. Now, this didn't help the Midianites' morale at all, and they began to panic. They thought that a vast army was going to sweep down on them, and they were in the valley of Jezreel with all their camels. Camels aren't noted for being mountain creatures, so they didn't have the high ground, but they did have the numbers. Okay, they had I think over 100,000 troops, but that's biblical Old Testament numbering. So, anytime somebody gets into a war, the first casualty of war is the truth. So, anyway, it panicked the Midianites. They're in flight. They had a lot of what we call friendly fire today. I guess they call them friendly swords, but friendly fire is not. And they were killing each other. And they thought they were going to have a wonderful raid against Gideon's family and tribe and everything, and that didn't work out so well for them. So now they think that the army is going to sweep down on them, and so they abandon their camp with all of its loot. Okay? And Gideon has 300 guys to chase 100,000. So he needs more. So he calls in some tribes who think, oh, there's the Midianite camp, and all we got to do is walk into it and loot it. Okay, wait, cool. If you're in a route and you don't want the enemy to follow you, dump your stuff and run, because they'll stop and take care of your stuff. The Battle of Shiloh was lost because the Confederates ran into the Union camp and began looting it instead of chasing the Union troops. So, it happens. So when I was in Desert Storm, I had a whole Humvee full of stuff. And if things went badly, I was going to dump the whole load and let the Iraqis sort through it while I got away. But anyway, the Midianites dumped their stuff and they're running. Okay, but now you need more than 300 guys to actually take care of the Midianites. Otherwise, they might figure out a mile or two down the road, hey, there's nobody chasing us. Let's turn around. So anyway, he calls in some other people to help him out. But there are complications. So let's see what happens. Then the Ephraimites. Okay, these is one of the tribes that Gideon called in late to the ball. Okay. Then the Ephraimites said to him, "What have you done to us, not to call us when you went to fight against the Midianites?" And they upbraided him violently. Okay, so we're talking about a coup here. And so he said to them, "What have I done now in comparison with you? Is not the gleaning of the grapes of Ephraim better than the vintage of Abiezer? God has given into your hands the captains of Midian, Oreb, and Zeb. What have I been able to do in comparison with you?" When he said this, their anger against him subsided. Okay, remember last week we talked about a warrior mentality. Okay, a warrior mentality is very trophy oriented. And what your honor in battle is to show how you utterly defeated somebody else. And in the warrior mentality, the honor of how you performed in combat is more important even than the loot that you might acquire. So they have acquired the two generals of the Midianites, and so Gideon says, isn't that's even better than loot? I mean, you could take their whole territory and their stuff wouldn't be as good as yours already. So he's flattering them on their accomplishments as vineyards, and he says, and look how brave you are that you captured the two generals, and there's your trophy. From now on, everyone will know that you were the ones who captured the generals of the Midianites. I mean, what could be better than that? I wasn't able to do it. You did it. Well, now that you mention it, okay. So now they're on board, and they're part of the pursuit too. Then Gideon came to the Jordan and crossed over, he and the 300 who were with him, exhausted and famished. So these are the main guys that were with him. Now, it doesn't mention anybody else. So he said to the people of Sukkoth, please give some loaves of bread to my followers, for they are exhausted, and I am pursuing Zebah and Zalmunna, the kings of Midian. But the officials of Sukkoth said, do you already have in your possession the hands of Zebah and Zalmunna, that we should give bread to your army? Gideon replied, well then, when the Lord has given Zebah and Zalmunna into my hands, I will trample your flesh on the thorns of the wilderness and on briars. Well, that wasn't nice. Okay? We're seeing a certain characteristic of Gideon that doesn't flow from the old Sunday school lessons. Okay. From there he went up to Penuel and made the same request of them, and the people of Penuel answered him as the people of Sukkoth had answered. So he said to the people of Penuel, when I come back victorious, I will break down this tower. Evidently they had a tower to break down. Okay? So it wasn't just like, high school kids painting something on the water tower. They're going to tear the whole thing down. All right. Now Zebah and Zalmunna were in Karkor with their army, about 15,000 men. That's a lot of people. Okay. All who were left of all the army of the people of the east, for 120,000 men bearing arms had fallen. So he's killed 120,000, or they have died killing each other. Okay, now you got another 15 grand that came to their senses and got away. Okay, so this was what, 135,000? I don't know if you could get 135,000 population out of it. Anyway,
So
here
how
we
do
go.
they keep up with these numbers, 120,000, 135,000?
No, they didn't. Well, yeah, it's something like Hamas, giving numbers. No, 1,000 represent, in Old Testament numerology, 1,000 represents all of them. Okay, so it could be 1,000 represents a whole tribe.
Right.
Okay, not necessarily 1,000 individuals, but this is the group that we got. It was a big group.
Right.
Okay, so we're going to call it a 1,000. Okay, but that's basically how they did their counting in the Old Testament. The numbers don't mean they took a census. The numbers mean groupings. You have to understand that people back then didn't have computers and calculators and and they weren't passing out forms door to door. They were, their numbers aren't going to be good anyway. Okay, so what they did was, instead of going enumerating things, they did things in groups. Okay, so 15 groups were left. Okay, the 15,000 men, all who were left of all the army of the people of the east, for 120,000 men bearing arms had fallen. So Gideon went up by the caravan route east of Nobah and Jogbehah and attacked the army, for the army was off its guard. Zebah and Zalmunna fled, and he pursued them and took the two kings of Midian, Jumping over. Zeba and Zalmunna, and threw all the army into a panic. All right. When Gideon, son of Joash, returned from the battle by the ascent of Heres, he caught a young man, one of his people of Sukkoth, and questioned him. When he listed for him the officials and elders of Sukkoth, 77 people. Now, this is kind of interesting. This is a young guy that they caught from the town that denied him bread, okay? And he knows all 77 officials. What young guy do you know that even knows who's elected president these days? So anyway.
Only the young people that don't know.
Yeah. Then he came to the people of Sukkoth and said, "Here are Zeba and Zalmunna, about whom you taunted me, saying, do you already have in your possession the hands of Zeba and Zalmunna, that we should give bread to your troops who are exhausted?" So he took the elders of the city, and he took thorns of the wilderness and briars with them. He trampled the people of Sukkoth. He also broke down the tower of Penuel and killed the men of the city. Okay, this is you read about the Mongol invasion, and this is the kind of stuff that they did. Okay, this is what they were noted for, doing this. You couldn't just execute people, you had to do it in the most horrific ways possible. And so here we have Gideon. It's not enough to kill them, he's got to kill them in a horrific way. Okay, he puts them on a bed of thorns and then runs his horses over them. What a joy.
And these were Jewish tribes?
Yeah, these are his own. Israel is not a country, is not a nation, okay? It's tribes. And these guys are warlords. That's all they are. You know, when you talk about judges, it sounds like he's got a wonderful official title. No, these guys are all warlords. That's what they do. And their tribes are based on a warrior mindset. So in a warrior mindset, anytime you come up against a culture that has a warrior mindset, they're going to be cruel. They're not going to be merciful. They're not going to be nice. Okay, their objective is not just to destroy an enemy, but to humiliate your opponent. And by humiliating your opponent, you elevate yourself. That's warrior mentality. And that's why I wish that we weren't using warrior terminology when we refer to our soldiers, because they're not like that. Okay? Our guys go out and do the job and, and treat their captives decently, I know there are exceptions, but generally speaking, when an American Army goes out, and really it's kind of the first time in history that that you have this kind of "I'm not here to take your territory" mentality. And this is, understand now, all of this is post-Civil War. We treated both sides treated their captives horribly. They were like concentration camps. Okay, in the Revolutionary War, the treatment of of American soldiers who were captured by the British was horrific. Okay, they put them in old hulks in New York Harbor and starved them to death. But generally speaking, now we have come, and I think the nations of the world, the Western civilizations especially, have decried the mistreatment of prisoners. Geneva Conventions were made, international laws were made, so you weren't going to treat your enemy captives this way. Okay, but the incentive to change that mentality internationally came primarily from the United States. It really did. I think we're the ones who pushed other nations to join the Geneva Convention and to be more civil.
So Eisenhower declared we are not conquerors.
No,
Liberators.
we are liberators. That's exactly right. Even we are liberators of our enemies, not just of the territories that our enemies have taken. okay? A lot of times these societies have to be liberated from themselves, okay? Now, when Russia liberated territory, it wasn't quite the same. Okay? All right, so anyway, these two kings or the people of Sukkoth and Jerubbaal are both treated very harshly by Gideon. He kills all the men in Penuel. Okay, you see something like this happening in later on in Judges, when there's a beef with the tribe of Benjamin. They go in and kill all the men in the tribe of Benjamin, but they make a provision that the offspring of the captive women are going to be called Benjaminites and not from the tribe that captured them. So they're trying to restore the tribe of Benjamin. They realize that they've gone a little bit too far. This thing about not getting bread, something like this happened also with King David during Absalom's rebellion. And David is pushed out of Jerusalem, and on the way out, he encounters different people. One of the people is a very wealthy person that actually David had helped. And David and his entourage are hungry, and they're asking this guy for rations, and he says, "No, I'm not going to give you anything," okay? Which means that maybe Absalom might catch up with you. So his wife, who is drop dead gorgeous, by the way, realizes that her husband is an idiot. And she loads up a couple of donkeys full of rations and takes them out to David and says, "Please don't," I mean, David made some serious threats. He was going to go in at that point and just wipe this guy out. And so she pleads for her husband, says, "Don't do it, here's some bread," okay? So after all this is over, mysteriously, I don't know what it was, mysteriously this guy drops dead. And and David marries his wife, his widow, and doesn't just get the bread, he gets all of his farm. Funny how that thing works out. Anyway, David was very taken with this lady. But they didn't have anybody like that from Sukkoth, so sorry about that. Okay. Then he said to Ziba and Zaluma, "What about the men whom you killed at Tabor?" They answered, and this was some time back, evidently these guys had raided and they killed some relatives of Gideon. "As you are, so were they, every one of them. They resembled the sons of a king." And he replied, "They were my brothers, the sons of my mother. As the Lord lives, if you had saved them alive, I would not kill you." So he said to Jether, his firstborn, "Go kill them." But the boy did not draw his sword, for he was afraid because he was still a boy. So all this stuff that's going on in Africa where they have child soldiers, Gideon was trying to recruit his underage son to be one of those and to be as murderous as the initiation for child soldiers in Africa these days. So Gideon is right in that category. Then Ziba and Zaluma said, "You come and kill us, for as a man is, so is his strength." So they didn't want to be killed by a boy either. They said, "You're going to whack me, do it like a man." Okay, so if they'd been killed by a boy, it would have been an insult. So they said, "Do it right." Okay, fine. So Gideon proceeded to kill Ziba and Zalumna, and he took the crescents that were on the necks of his camels. Isn't that cool? And I'll tell you what, the Midianites really knew how to gussy up a camel. I don't know if you've ever watched these North African tribes and take a look at how they decorate their camels, but I mean, it's like, all kinds of stuff. It's something like the jazzed up cars that you see out in LA, Then the Israelites said to Gideon, "Rule over us, you and your son and your grandson also, For you have delivered us out of the hand of Midian. What are they saying? They're saying, we want you to be a king. Okay? Gideon, out of the goodness of his heart, okay, Gideon said to them, I will not rule over you, and my son will not rule over you. The Lord will rule over you. I guess he understood pretty well what the fate of kings usually is. Then Gideon said to them, let me make a request of you. Each of you give me an earring he has taken as spoil, for the enemy had golden earrings because they were Ishmaelites. We will willingly give them. Now, remember, wasn't there a time past when somebody asked for the earrings of the Egyptians, I think? Who asked for the earrings before this?
The Israelites asked the Egyptians for their.
Oh, they stole them. They looted this town, okay, and they picked up all the good stuff before they went on the Exodus, okay. So and that's one of the reasons why Pharaoh chased them, because they had attacked an Egyptian town. So they had the earrings. Who asked for them in the Exodus? Who asked for golden earrings in the Exodus? Come on.
Moses.
No, Moses did not ask for the earrings. But you're close.
Aaron.
Aaron asked for the earrings, and what did he do with the earrings? He made a golden calf, right, and they began to worship the golden calf while Moses was up there getting the law from God. Okay? So here we have a similar thing. He's asking for the earrings of the Midianites, and they had plenty of them, 2 apiece. and they also, they got all kinds of things in addition. But he just said he didn't ask for all the spoil, just the earrings, small. Okay. We will willingly give them, they answered. So they spread a garment, and each threw into it an earring he had taken as spoil. The weight of the golden earrings that he requested was 1,700 shekels of gold, apart from the crescents and the pendants and the purple garments worn by the kings of Midian and the collars that were on the necks of their camels. Evidently, there's some other stuff out there that's really worth a lot, but he's only asking for the earrings, okay? But there were a lot of those, so we got a lot of gold here. Gideon made an ephod. Everybody know what an ephod was? It was a breastplate, okay, but who wore the breastplate? The priest. Is Gideon a priest? No. But he's assuming the role of a priest, okay? And why is he doing this?
To show that he's the man.
Okay, going to show that he's the man. Everything we've heard so far is that God told Gideon, God told Gideon, God told Gideon. So what's Gideon saying? Well, if God's talking to me, then people could ask me a question and God will tell me what the answer is. Okay? So people come, and what do they do about that? Gideon made an ephod of it and put it on in his town in Ophrah, and all Israel prostituted themselves to it there and became a snare to Gideon and to his family. So Midian was subdued before the Israelites, and they lifted up their heads no more. So they had rest for 40 years in the day of Gideon. So, okay, so Gideon is a Messiah of sorts. Gideon doesn't reestablish his daddy's altar to Baal, but he has this golden ephod, which is like a war trophy, okay? But it's also an indication that he is the interlocutor between God and the people. And so when they have a question, they can come to Gideon. And that might cost you something. You know? Just like any good oracle. You're going to pay a price. So Gideon's getting rich off of the ephod, and ostensibly from the Word of God. Now, he isn't turning the people away from God, but he's doing something that I fear some religions tend to do, where their clergy are the mediators between the church members and God. Okay, somebody comes talks to me, I can give you an opinion. Okay? I can give you an opinion based on my extensive studies and and my intellect and my cultural upbringing and all of that and my understanding of what it means to have faith in God. I can give you advice, okay? If you want God's answer, you better go talk to the boss, because I'm just the help. All right?
Yeah, but God's chosen Gideon for this job.
God chose Gideon to whack the Midianites. God didn't choose Gideon to do this.
He didn't choose him to continue to be the leader of their people for how many years?
40.
40? Or was that Gideon and the people just...
See, this is the thing that I don't get, okay?
Because
Gideon-
God chose those judges, and he chose them for a reason.
Yes, that's what it says.
Right, so they'll be in. I mean, it seems like right now Gideon's a bad guy,
Yeah,
but he's, in reality, he is a bad guy, but he's doing what God's called him to do.
isn't it interesting how God seems to use bad guys from time to time?
Well,
That is interesting.
but isn't that the moral lesson for us? That even though we are not good, we could continue, we could be.
Okay,
Well, Gideon started out good.
No.
Gideon started out doing the right thing.
no, he
No,
didn't.
but he asked God to give him
No, he
proof. He asked God to give him proof, which
Yeah.
we always
Yeah.
use the word weakness. I mean, doubt, but when I was reading about it, we use the word weakness. And to me, weakness and doubt are two different things. That he had faith, and he was weak in his faith, therefore he asked God to give him some direction.
Yes, which we all do. Now, he started out as the son of a prophet of Baal.
Well,
Priest
but
of
I mean,
Baal.
He did good, and then his pride entered in.
Yes,
And then,
but he didn't have much to go on. Okay? Gideon's understanding of religion is pagan.
Because he lives in a pagan culture.
He lives in a pagan culture, which should not have been pagan. Okay, now what I'm trying to figure out is, you take Saul. Okay, God picks Saul,
Right.
right? And then Saul turns out not to be such a good king after all. After he's been totally undermined and by subterfuge from Samuel. Okay, so so Saul makes some choices that are not consistent with Samuel's choices. All right, and so Samuel foments a coup against Saul, and Saul begins to make some bad decisions. Okay, but he's driven to that by a guy who is actually a priest.
Well, Samuel must not have been a good guy either.
Samuel is not.
Because he wrote Judges, according to what I've been looking at, so.
Yeah, there's nothing good about Samuel. He is not one of my favorite guys. Okay, he's not one of my favorite guys. You remember, God, as a little boy, Samuel got the word of God that
Yeah.
Eli was going to be held accountable for his sons. Okay, Samuel's sons were just like Eli's sons. They're just as corrupt as Eli's sons. Okay, so what kind of a guy is Samuel? Well, he really doesn't. You'd think he would learn a lesson, but he didn't. And when he had the authority, he didn't use it properly. And then God speaks to Samuel and tells him about Saul, and then he undermines Saul, and so God sends him to David, who turns out to be a genocidal guy and, a king who doesn't have the highest moral standards either. Okay, but the thing to remember is that through all of this, through all of the flaws and everything else of the people that God chooses, He's not choosing saints. God is not choosing saints. God is choosing people, even the Apostle Paul didn't start out as a really good guy, okay? So God is using people, and what you have to understand is that what God has to work with is humanity. But if he's going to get anything done, he's got to use humans, okay? And he doesn't always pick the best humans, but he's going to get stuff done anyway.
Well, he chooses those humans that he sees something in them that we don't see or that other people don't, or he wouldn't be choosing them.
Right.
Yeah,
And
but
they-
there were other choices. I mean, look at the prophets. The
Yeah,
prophets were chosen by God.
Yeah.
And for the most part, what I remember reading, they did the right things.
they did. Prophets had better moral standards than the monarchs or the priests.
And they were as smart as these guys.
Yeah.
Solomon started good.
No,
He was bad from the beginning.
Solomon was the offspring of a pagan, and
Yeah, but that's the lesson. Just because your parentage is not good doesn't mean you can't be good.
well, that's true, or that you can't be used, or
you
that
can't
you're
be used.
useless.
And we
Yeah.
can't judge the kids by their parents, or we can't judge the parents by their kids.
Right.
And I guess there's some people that say, thank goodness for that.
Well, I think that's a good lesson from the Old Testament.
Well, isn't that what the Old Testament does anyway? They take those that are we would not look and choose them ourselves.
How do you think I got into ministry, for crying out loud?
That's a good question.
I haven't got a good answer.
That's what I was waiting for, was that.
Why is it, I know it's getting time to go,
Yeah.
but why are this Gideon group
Yeah.
that runs around putting Bibles everywhere, which is a good Christian group, why are they Gideons? It's
Because they
Gideons.
haven't read chapter 8.
They're not read the whole story. I mean, really,
But you know, there's something good because they say the land was peaceful for 40 years during my thing went away,
Yeah,
during Gideon's time.
right.
And if Gideon had been all bad, then I don't think they would have lived in peace for 40 years.
What Gideon was strong.
And God saw that in him.
Yes, and yeah,
Well,
if you're
first
going to
of all,
get something done, you might want to go to somebody who's got some.
But think about it.
Power.
Gideon starts threshing his wheat in the wine press
Yeah.
because he figured out that they couldn't see him there. There's something there that
Well, he
makes
was sneaky to begin with.
him smart.
Well, there is that too. Okay. One of the things that I think is a theme that you need to look at is that God respects someone and often uses someone who is more shrewd than good. Jesus used that in parables and said, look at this servant who got himself out of hock. I wish that our people could be as shrewd as that. Okay? There's an attribute of shrewdness that God seems to
But
respect.
haven't we always said that about Orthodox Jews? That they were shrewd people?
Yeah,
Wise as a serpent.
wise as serpent and gentle as lamb.
They're in the land, that's right.
Right. Okay, most of the shrewd people forgot that second part.
That's right.
Anyway, we'll finish this up and go on to chapter 9, which is no better than chapter 8. And I want you to know that Judges is all downhill from here. It didn't start at a very high ridge either. Okay, God bless you. See you next week.
Thank you, Dennis.
I had that same question. Why do the Gideons call
Yeah,
themselves?
yeah.